So now we're going to do an edit for the Rainforest Public Service Announcement, or PSA. So the first thing that you want to do is download the footage. I've already done that, and I'm opening up the script here. Also, the instructions are here. If we go down here, though, we're just going to use the script. And so here's Premiere when you open it. Here's the new thing. So we're going to go into New Project. And we're going to go to Browse, of course. And I've already downloaded the the footage. So I'm going to go here. I'm in the Files. I'm going to go to my folder that I created for the Rainforest edit. These instructions are in the instructions are in the written document that I just showed you. So go to that, aim it at that folder, then go to Scratch Disk, make sure they all say same as project. If any of them don't, just go in here and make sure it says same as project. Now we're going to call this Rainforest Edit, and we're going to say OK. Now what we just did was to tell Premiere where to put everything. Okay, now this is the standard Premiere editing interface, and I'm just going to show you real quick how to modify it. Okay, so if we go here to Window, Workspaces, Editing, which is what's already chosen, it also shows up here. That gives you the interfaces. So I don't like it like this because I like to see more of my media, and this is a very small window, and actually these windows are bigger than they need to be. So I'm just going to grab by the name of the window here, and it becomes a tab as I pull it out, and I'm going to put it all the way left here and let go. And then I'm going to just stretch this out a little bit. I don't need media browser, so I'm going to click on those little lines there and close panel. Library, same thing. Info, same thing. I'm going to take the effects and grab by that and drag up here and put right next to Rainforest, a project window. And markers I don't need. And I do like to have history, so I'm going to put it up there too. Okay, and then I'm just going to slide this over. So I like to have the project window there. Okay, now this is pretty okay size-wise. I'm going to come over here and just sort of even this up a little bit. Just check this left and right, make sure it's taking up all the screen it can, and that's good. And I might make these a little bit taller on the timeline since that's where the work happens. Now sometimes this is a little wide, which is the audio meter, and it doesn't need to be that wide, you can see. So just narrow it down, and if you still feel your timeline's not quite wide enough, then just go ahead and move this over, and then just push that up so it's one line. And then maybe even these up again. Okay, so now once we've got that, we can come up here and say Window, Workspaces, and save changes to this workspace. So now when we go to editing, it'll be that. So if we go over here to audio, which we're going to do later on, and there's the audio interface, and when we want to change back to editing, we just go back to editing, and it remembers the setup we did because we told it to save right here by going Window, Workspaces, and save the changes that we made to Workspace. Okay, so now let's go ahead. I've already opened up the script, which is inside what I was downloaded. So here's the script. I'm just keeping that by the side, and if you're doing this on your own, you're going to want to have that script open. But let's go back to Premiere here, and let's import the media to start. And Premiere helps you by having that right there. So let's just double click right there, and we're going to go to the files. That's where I downloaded the folder to, and then we'll go inside this folder here. Okay, and now I don't need to get each one of these. If I just click on the folder here, there on your version there's a little button that says import folder. You choose that, and since in this version I just have to be on the folder, and when I import it, it'll understand to import just everything that's in the folder. So it's going to do that. Now there's a project file in there, so because I told it to save the project there, so it's going to ask me to import the entire project, which includes that project file. So we just wait for that to happen. Okay, now it's giving us a error message here. This is actually the script, which is a RTF, a rich text format file, which Premiere can't read, so it's just telling you that it can't import that, so that's fine. Just say OK. And then if we flip down this little triangle to show what's inside the Rainforest folder, we see all the footage. Now it says drop media here to create a sequence. That's exactly what we're going to do. Now we're going to do it with a piece of video and not just a piece of audio. If we start it with audio, Premiere will not set itself to deal with the video correctly. So we're going to just take the first shot here, doesn't matter which one you use, and just drop it on here. And of course you can see it creates a sequence, and it makes a sequence file here that's named the same as the clip I used to make it with, but that's not what I want to call this. So I'm going to click on the name here, and I'm going to type it Rainforest Edit and hit enter to lock the name in. And then this is not our first shot, we just used it to make the sequence. So I'm going to click on it and hit delete on the keyboard. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, remember this is a dialogue driven commercial, so we're going to double click the Rainforest VO, that's short for voiceover, and this is pre-edited, so we don't really have to do anything. If it wasn't pre-edited, we could set proper in and out points at the beginning of the voiceover and the end of the voiceover and lay it in there, but since it's pre-edited, we're fine. And notice that this is called the timeline header, and notice that the A1 track already has the A1 source aimed at it, that we're at 0, which is the beginning. So now I've got the choice of either hitting the overwrite button, or I like to use the keyboard shortcut, which is shown here as the period key. So I'm just going to hit this to begin with. Now it's not showing up very big, so the keyboard shortcut for that is just above the enter key or return key, and that is fit to window here. And then I'm going to put the mouse right between A1 and A2. I'm going to pull this a little bit taller just so I can see those more clearly, the waveform representation. Now in this particular case, usually I don't add the music until like one of the last steps, but it's very important that we're able to hear the music, because there's especially a cue right at the beginning that we're going to use as the beat of the music comes in. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the music. I'm going to double click it here, and the music loads in here. And again, it's been pre-edited. If it was not, I could set proper in and out points, but we don't want to write it here or we will overwrite our voice. So we're going to take it down here to the A2 track. Notice it's the A1 source is now going to the A2 track. And we're just going to go ahead and overwrite again. Now I'm clicking on this button just so you can visually see it, because if I use the keyboard, you can't see what I'm doing. But I'm going to use the keyboard from now on, but here just for this, okay? So let me hit the backslash key. Now see, I did that wrong because I had my playhead in the wrong place. So I'm going to click this and hit delete. I'll bring my playhead back to the beginning and do it again. And now it falls in the right place. Hit the backslash key. Okay, so now my audio is in place, okay, but it's audio only with no video going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now go ahead and mix this. So I'm going to go to the audio setup, okay, and here you can see all this audio related stuff. I'm going to click in the timeline and hit the backslash key so I can see everything. I'm going to click on the dialogue, the voice over, and here's the dialogue. I'm going to tell it, yes, that's dialogue. And then I'm going to use a preset. It's mostly females and children's voices, but we don't have a choice for children, so we're just going to use balanced female voice and put that there. And then we're going to click on the music, which is on the A2 track, and I'm going to tell it it's music, and the preset here we're going to use balanced background music. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now we're done with this. I'm going to save, by the way, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command S. Okay, and then I'm going to switch back to editing, the editing mode. Okay, so now I'm back where I need to be. Okay, again, I'm going to hit the backslash key so that I get as much a view of this as I possibly can. And we're going to go refer to the script. So I'm going to do that. I'm just using the command and the tab key to switch between the programs here. So the first shot is the announcer says, if we don't save the rainforest, what will happen? And during that shot, we're going to have lagoon. Now we're familiar with this, so let's go all the way back to the beginning. Let's mark an endpoint using the I key on the keyboard. And then we're going to play until we hear that line, which is, if we don't save the rainforest, what will happen? So let's play and listen, and keeping our finger on the space bar so we can start and stop it at the right time.
If we don't save the rainforest, what will happen?
Stop. And then mark O for out. Notice how that's connected. Now, we've got a video. We're going to put a video source in here, which is lagoon. So let's go ahead and double click lagoon. Notice I'm clicking the icon, not the words. Now, lagoon also has audio with it, so we don't want to write any audio, so we're going to turn this off. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and just lock these tracks because they're already done. So I'm going to lock all my audio tracks because I've already mixed them, I've already put them down there, it's all fine. So we're doing video only edits from now on because these are locked, and we're doing this video one source to the video one track. Okay, so now we've marked in and out where we want it to go. Now we're just going to scrub through this to see what the shot is. And it looks like some kind of, and it cuts into this, and obviously we don't want that. That's not the first shot. So we're just going to move a little in from the beginning and mark I for in. And then I'm going to use, this is the button you could hit, but I'm just going to use the period key and lay in our first shot. Now, if we had gone into Premiere and we went up here to the preferences, and I think it's timeline. We came down here, we want these boxes checked. Set focus on the timeline when performing the edits, and snap playhead. We want those boxes are often defaulted to be unchecked, which is just dumb because it works much better to that should be a default where they're just on. Okay, my default transition is 1 second, so when I put a fade or a dissolve, it's 1 second long. And same thing, 30 frames for the video. 30 frames is 1 second in American TV. And if we make a still image, which we're not going to do in this project, in this particular project, it's 5.5 seconds, but that's irrelevant. So it's these two boxes that are important. So let's go ahead and say OK. And now, as I have reminded you, when you do an edit, Premiere just puts the playhead right at the beginning of the next edit. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit I for in, and I'm going to go back and look at the script briefly. And the next line is just a sound. It's music. So the music cuts in, and we're going to go right to before the next audio, the next voiceover audio, where they say the trees will all fall down. So I'm just going to play this. Click in the timeline and play.
The trees will.
Now I see it, so I want to back up. And I can use the left arrow key on the keyboard. Get right before they're talking and mark O for out. So just this little part is going to be the jungle run. So let's go, let's do the run in the trees. Let's double click that, and you can see it's very short. Again, I'm going to mark in, not at the very beginning. I'm going to come in a couple, 4 or 5 frames and mark I for in and hit the period key to overwrite. And then immediately I'm going to mark in because that's where my next edit starts. Let's go back to the script. So the next is the trees will all fall down. Now there's 2 shots that's going to go there, but let's mark it first. So let's do, okay, here.
The trees will all fall down.
Now we're not going to set an out point here at the end of the dialogue. We're going to actually push it until the beginning of the next dialogue. So that's about right there. Okay, now if I just play it, I can hear it.
The trees will all fall down.
And there's quite a little pause in here.
There won't.
Okay, so, and you can see as I drag it, you can hear it. But that's right where it starts, so mark out. Okay, now what we're going to do is, since we have 2 shots to put in here, we have the tree pan and the water's edge. We're not going to do any math. We're not going to see this in and out point here is indicating that it's 4 seconds and 23 frames, so it's almost 5 seconds. But we're not going to worry about math here. We're just going to visually divide it in half. Okay, just and it doesn't have to be exact. Just kind of just visually get it roughly in half and just mark out. So that's the first shot, which is the tree pan. So let's go get tree pan. Okay, now I am going to scrub through this and see what the whole shot is. The camera just pans from the left to the right, and this is kind of not as interesting as this. So again, I'm going to start near the beginning and come in about 6 frames, 5, 4, 5, 6 frames, mark in, and then overwrite, and then it writes it in here, and then immediately mark I for in. And we saw where the dialogue ends here, so I want to get right about here. Notice if I go too far into it, I can hear it, so I'm going to back up with the left arrow key. Right there, and mark out. Okay, and remind ourselves that this is the water's edge shot. So let's go get that. And the beginning of this is mostly water, but as we go forward, it starts to get into the trees here, which is what we want. So I'm about 4 seconds in, roughly. Mark in and overwrite. Okay, there we go. And then again, immediately mark in. And let's go back and look at the script. So the next one is there won't be a place for the animals to live. And there's actually 4 shots here. So we got to go from here to where they say that to this right here. So I can just drag this over here for a second where they're about to start talking. Okay, mark out. And this just gives me sort of a visual cue because, again, I'm not going to do any math. This is 7 seconds and 13, so it's about 7.5 seconds. But instead of doing any math, I'm just going to visually divide this into, quarters. So there's going to be 4 shots in here. So that's about a quarter of it. Mark out. Okay, and my first shot is the snake. So let's go get the snake. And I'm going to get here where the snake is not behind that branch, but where he's just coming in there. So maybe a little bit like that. Mark in and overwrite, and then immediately mark in, and go about the same amount of space as we did before, about a quarter of the way, and mark out. And the next shot is the sloth. So let's get the sloth. And again, I'm going to scroll through the sloth. And we got this nice shot here, and then he gets out of the frame. So we want to start again. We don't want to be totally like this. Let's get him where he's doing a little bit of forward motion here, right there. So let's back up right about there. Mark in, overwrite with the period key, and then again mark in right away. And we got to go from here to here. That's about where the out point's going to be. So if I just put an out point there temporarily, I just want to split that in half. So just kind of go just right about there. Doesn't have to be exact. And then here's the sloth. So let's go ahead and this time I'll use the button rather than the period key. And there it is. And again, immediately mark in. And then let's set the out point for the last portion. Make sure we're not on the voice. If you are, just use the left and right arrow keys. So you move it back to the left. Get off the talking. Right there, and mark out. Okay, and then this is the monkey. Okay. Now the monkey has some, the cameraman here at the beginning is, see how it's focusing. So you want to go past that part where he's got the monkey in focus, about right here. And then the monkey's just looking down for a while, and then he looks up. He looks up and over, and then comes back toward the camera. So let's pick it up here where he's about to turn his head away from us, and mark I for in there, and then overwrite, and then let's save, Command S. Should have saved a little bit before that, but again, let's go ahead and mark in, and let's go back and look at the script. So again, now we said that the plants that cure people will disappear. There's two shots in there, sun and roots and mountain zoom. So again, we've already marked in, so let's figure out where the mark out's going to be. Right about there. So let's mark out there just to look at it, and that just helps us visually, because we're not doing any math, to kind of cut it in half, because we got two shots to put in here. So let's do that. And the first one is sun in roots, so let's go get that. Okay, and we got this little thing happening where we pan down into this darkness and then back up. So let's start it in the darkness and have it come up there right where that little flash is going to happen. So mark in and put that in there, then mark in again immediately, and take it to just before the next dialogue, which you can visually see here. So mark it out, and again the shot is mountain zoom. So let's go get mountain zoom, double click, and it's just a little zoom out here. So again, we're going to start pretty close to the beginning and mark in and hit an overwrite. So again, save, Command S, and go ahead and mark in right away. So let's see what the next shot is on the script. So it's the birds can't fly home, and there's two shots, a hummingbird and a toucan. So again, let's say
The birds can't fly home.
okay, so let's go to the beginning of the next dialogue here and mark out. So we're going to split this in half too, because there's two shots. So again, about halfway roughly, and you're just eyeballing it. Mark out. First one is the hummingbird. And this is a very short shot, so we're going to get it just as the bird comes into the shot, right about there. Mark in, and period key to overwrite, then mark in right away again, and bring it to the beginning of that next dialogue, but not into that next dialogue, and mark out there. And the next one is the toucan, so let's double click. And the shot starts with the camera pans down. So let's get them coming down a little bit, and then as the bird turns. So let's get it about right there. So we don't need all this down panning stuff. Well, maybe we can get a little piece of that. Little piece of the down pan. So let's mark in and overwrite, and then save, Command S. So let's go back to the script. And the next one is mountain mist. So the planet will get too hot. Okay, so let's play this here. Let's click here, mark in first, and then play it.
Our planet will get too hot.
Planet will get too hot. So let's go to the next dialogue. Right about there, you can visually see it there, and mark out. And this is mountain mist. Okay. Okay, so that's that, and it's pretty much just a pan of that same looking terrain. So it looks pretty interesting across the way. It's all pretty much the same. So just mark in at the beginning and overwrite with the period key. And again, mark in right away. And let's go back and look at the next shot. Is we won't be able to breathe. Now this rolling mist shot is very short, so we may have to apply a special effect to it, but let's just get it here. So
We won't be able to breathe.
okay, so this is going, again, if I'm into the next dialogue, I just back up with the left arrow key. Right there, and mark out. So this is 202 that we're going to fill up. Now let's look at the rolling mist. Okay. Now what we've got for the rolling mist is if we mark in here at the beginning of rolling mist and then go forward, right here at the end, it cuts out. So what I want to do is put an out point before, like 1 frame forward on the right arrow key. That's that wrong shot, and go 1 frame back with the left arrow key and mark out. So now I've got a situation where I've got an in and out that's asking for 2 seconds and 2 frames. But I've got an in and out marked in the source that only giving me 1 second and 16 frames. So when I try to do the overwrite, I'm going to get a dialog box that comes up that asks me how to deal with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click. I'm going to click this. I could hit the period key. And here's what it asked me. It says the source is shorter than the destination. See, this is 116 and this is 202. So what do you want to do? Do you want to ignore the out points? No. But we're going to change the speed of the clip to fit. So it's going to slow motion this clip just a little bit. But because there's no people or cars or anything, it's only fog that's sort of, or smoke, well, it's fog really, that's just floating across here. You can't really tell that it's been slow mode, or if you can, it just looks nice anyway. So now we've done that, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let's go ahead and save, Command S. So now you'll see the shot as has slow motion applied to it, but it's really kind of hard because it just looks like fog moving very slowly.
We won't be able to breathe.
See? Okay, now I've gone beyond this here, so I'm going to back it up to the next point by just hitting the up arrow key, and I'll get back to that point and mark in. Now I'm going to go back and look at the script, and the next one is, will I become extinct?
Will I become extinct?
Now I'm going to carry this through all the way to here to the next dialogue and mark out, and the shot is again sun and trees. So let's go get the sun and trees. Okay, and again, this is a pretty static shot, so let's pick it up at the pretty close to the beginning, mark in and overwrite with the period key, and again mark in right away. And the next shot is, so there's a montage here. There's 3 shots here. It's waterfall, waterfall pan, and streaming sun. Okay, so let's play this the piece here, and let's just see what we're dealing with here.
We promise our children the world. Let's show them we mean it. Adopt an acre of the rainforest.
Okay, so that's where they say adopt the acre of the rainforest, and if you go back to the script, we're going to put up a graphic there that says adopt an acre of the rainforest. Okay, so we want to start, that's where we want to start that. Okay,
let's show them we mean it.
right there, so I'm going to mark out. Now I've got 3 shots, but I'm going to fit these first 2 shots in between here. So I just marked out so I could see where I'm going to divide these 2 shots. So I'm going to put one here, mark out, and the first one is the waterfall. So let's go there. And the water, oh, that's waterfall pan. Here's waterfall by itself. So the shot starts up here, but then it goes down. Okay. And I want to end it where I can see this. So instead of marking an end point in this, the important part of the shot is the ending of it. So instead of marking an end point, I'm going to mark an out point. So once I see this here, I don't want to go too far, and I want to mark an out point instead of an end point. And then I'm going to hit the period key to put that in there, and you'll see it stops it right at the right place. So it's at the bottom of the waterfall.
We promise our children the world. Let's show them.
Okay, so then let's hit the up arrow key to get back to that space and mark in. And now we're going to get the waterfall pan. And again, it's just a pan this way. And again, I'm not going to start it where you can't see the bottom. I'm just going to bring the bottom into it first and then mark in. And I'm going to start right before adopt an acre of the rainforest. So
let's show them we mean it.
Right there. Okay, so let's write that in there. I'm just hitting using the button instead of the period key. And again, I'm going to mark in. And I'm going to get streaming sun. Okay. Now, there's a little glitch in this, and you can see it kind of makes, you see that little jump it's making right there at about almost 3 seconds. I want to go past that jump so it doesn't show up in our edit. So go past that jump. So I'm going to look at 3.5 seconds, 3:15, 3:16, mark in. And then I'm going to go to the end of the commercial and mark out. And I'm going to overwrite this in there with a period key. Boom. So let's save, Command S. Okay. Now let's see what the whole deal looks like. So let's bring it back to the beginning. And we're going to play. I'm just going to put my mouse over this screen, and I'm going to hit the little like Enye symbol that's over the tab key to make it full screen and play it for you.
If we don't save the rainforest, what will happen?
The trees will all fall down. There won't be a place for the animals to live. The plants that cure people will disappear.
I saw a mistake in there we're going to have to fix.
The birds can't fly home. Our planet will get too hot. We won't be able to breathe. Will I become extinct?
We promise our children the world. Let's show them we mean it. Adopt an acre of the rainforest and keep your promise.
Okay, so let me get out of that mode and put the mouse back here and hit the Enye symbol again. Now, I put in 2 shots back together of the sloth. So here's the first shot. I'm just going to get back here. Here's the first shot of the sloth. Now here's the second shot of the sloth, which I don't want. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so I can see what it is. So I have sloth here and sloth here. So I'm going to just park my playhead inside the second sloth and hit the X key on the keyboard. That'll mark that clip. And what I really want to put here is frog. So I'm going to double click. And the frog kind of does 2 jumps. He does one where he crawls a little bit like that, and then he jumps. And then he does another one where he does 2 jumps. He jumps, and then he jumps again. I don't think we have time I like that one better, but I don't think we have time for it. But we can try that. So let's do it right before he jumps here. So bring his legs back, mark in. Okay, and let's overwrite that onto the timeline with a period key. And let's see if we have time for both jumps. And we do, so I kind of like that. So we just fix that little part. Let's just play this little part here.
There won't be a place for the animals to live. The plants that cure people will...
Okay, so we got that. So that's fixed. Hit the backslash key. All right, now let's save, Command S. Now we're going to come here. We're going to add the graphic. So let's park the graphic on top of the last shot. Notice I'm just putting it right at the beginning of the last shot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lock this track so I don't mess it up while I'm making the graphic. So all of this is locked. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get the text tool. Now before I do that, I'm going to turn on the safe margins. Now if this safe margins icon isn't there, you can click the plus symbol and you can go get the safe margins and just drag it down here. Now I'm not going to do that since it's already there. But once you drag it down, you just click OK and you'll get it. Now what safe margins does is that this puts up these lines that tell you to put your graphics inside this box. Now this, even if you export it like this, the lines won't show up. It's just a guide to show you where to put your graphics. So what I'm going to do is, now that I'm in the graphics mode and I got my safe margins turned on, I'm going to go to the graphics setup. Okay, and I'm going to click down here in the timeline, hit the backslash key. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit. And I don't get anything here because I haven't put any text here yet. But I'm going to go get the T on the text tool. And I'm going to click right here. And I'm not going to click in the middle because it's going to type out to the right. So I'm going to click over here on the left. And remember, I'm typing, if I look at my script, I'm typing adopt an acre of the rainforest and keep your promise. So okay, this is obviously way too big. So first of all, let's change the font. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to type Arial, A-R-I-A-L, and I'm going to use Arial Bold. And you can pick your own font, but let's just keep it to that to start with. And I'm going to click here on the size and just make it 40. Okay, and I've sort of predetermined this. So adopt. Now look, I'm way over here. So want to click over here and just move this. Let me undo that. Okay, let me just get rid of this. Click here and just hit delete. I'm going to start this again. And I'm going to get the text tool. I'm going to click right here on the left. And then I'm going to make it be Arial, bold. I'm going to change the size to 40. Okay, and then I'm going to type adopt an acre of the, and then hit return, rainforest, return, and keep your promise. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and center this by clicking this button. Okay, and notice when I do that, it kind of gets it off the screen. So I'm going to click here and move it back into the middle of the screen. Now this is not very visible, okay, so I don't really love it, but it's good enough, because what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and with this selected, we're going to tell it to have a stroke on it. So we click on the stroke to activate it, we click on the stroke color and make it black, and say okay, and then we're going to change this to 3. Okay, so that puts a 3 pixel black stroke on the edge of the letters to make it more visible. We're going to turn on the shadow. We're going to make the shadow completely black. Okay, and I kind of like that shadow. It's nice and fuzzy and looks like a soft shadow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to harden it up just a little bit by bringing this down. See how it looks like a really hard shadow now? So I'm going to bring it up and make it just slightly soft at like 14 or 15. Let's make it 15. Just click on it and type. And then if I want to, I've still got it at 75% visibility. That would be 100 if I brought it all the way up. That's a little harsh. So let's click here and just keep it at 75. That's fine. And now I don't really love the white on this, so I'm going to click on the fill and I'm going to put something in yellow. Okay, I don't love that either, but at least it's more readable. Okay, so now I've got this graphic. Now I'm done with this, so let's save, Command S, and let's go back to the editing mode. And let's fix the length of the graphic. So again, let's click in here and hit the backslash key, and you can see the graphics going off the end of the last shot. So let's just grab it by the edge. Notice when I touch the edge of my video, the tool changes to this little, you see here's the normal tool. Now it changes to this little, and I'm going to trim it back this way. See the way the arrow's pointing, and I click and drag, and it just snaps to the end. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. My playhead's right here, so when I hit plus, I zoom in here, and I'm going to unlock the track. Now I never fade out voices, so the voice is not going to get a fade, and the music does its own fade in this particular case, so I'm not going to change that either. But I've unlocked these so I can add fade. So again, I'm going to touch the end of it here with my mouse and right click and apply the default transition, which is a dissolve, and the default length we set up was for 1 second, but we want this to be 10 frames. So we double click the little icon itself and type 10 and enter. See how it got shorter, and then the same thing here, right click, apply default transition, see how it's a second, double click, 10, remember American TV is 30 frames a second, and then at the beginning of this I'm going to right click and apply so the graphic fades in, and I don't want it to take a whole second to fade in, so I'm going to double click and make it be 15 so it takes half a second to fade in. Again, I'm going to save, Command S. And I'm going to go all the way to the beginning of the production, and I'm going to right click on the very front of the first shot and apply another transition. And again, I don't want it to take a full second, so I'm going to double click and type 10 and return, and again save and hit the backslash key. And now we're pretty much done. That's the whole 9 yards. Now let's just play the end of it so you can see how the graphic fades in.
We promise our children.
Oh, I'm going to turn off the title safe. I mean, it wouldn't output anyway, but just to make sure, I'm just going to click here and bring the title safe down so I can use it and just turn it off. Okay, so let's take a look.
Will I become extinct?
We promise our children the world. Let's show them we mean it. Adopt an acre of the rainforest and keep your promise.
Oh, well, it would help if I spelled rainforest right? So let's go back on here and get my text tool, T, and click very carefully inside here and add an I to that. So it's actually rainforest, and then save, Command S. All right, so now we're ready to export, okay? So first we want to make sure the timeline is selected here, and we want to come up to File, Export Media, and we wait for the media encoder to open up. And then once it does, the first thing we want to do, we come down here to source range, which is underneath the picture, and we tell it that we don't want any of this. We want the entire sequence. So the entire project exports. It's already on H.264, but if it wasn't, we could click and change it to H.264. The preset, we're going to go all the way to the bottom here and choose YouTube 720p because it's nice and small and uploads quickly. Because we named it correctly when we created the project and when we made the sequence, we called it Rainforest Edit. We don't need to change the name, but we do click on output name to tell it where to output to. And so we're going to go on the files and we're going to go to that folder I created that's called Rainforest Edit. Let me find it. Here, click here and save. Now when we save it, all that did was save. We told it what to be, H.264 YouTube 720p, what to name it and where to save it. And we told it entire sequence, but we haven't done it yet. That just saved all the settings. Now we're going to hit export and it's going to export the movie. And I'm not going to sit here while this does this. I'll speed it up. I'll edit the video before I put it on YouTube. So we don't have to sit here for a minute of this rendering out. But then once you do that, you export it and then you take it up to YouTube and you embed it in your WordPress website to turn in for your ICA. And this is exactly how you're going to do the first major project when we do that too. Okay, so that's it.